Lovely to meet you sitting in front of the Tate Gallery, of which Geoffrey was a trustee.
Yes.
And remember, you did a video a year ago of your work. And so what I was hoping today was to talk about your experience with Geoffrey Jellicoe,
Right.
which is a lovely record for other people to have.
Yes.
So, what, do you remember what year you graduated from the AAO? I think?
Yes, I was at the AA,
And what year did you graduate?
1959.
And was Geoffrey's office your first job?
Well, it was in a way because we had to do one term in an office in the fourth year, which was an experiment. In fact, they didn't repeat. And I went to Geoffrey's office for that one term.
And how did you hear of the office?
Well, that's rather interesting. It's nothing to do with landscape architecture at all. My mother and Susan were great friends. I was born in Grove Terrace, so we were neighbours when I was born. And my mother and Susan remained great friends when we moved away. So when I decided to do an art school, my parents got in touch with the Jellicoes and said, "How do you become an architect?" And they said, "You go to the AA." So that's how I got to know about his office.
So had you visited Geoffrey's office before you started working there?
No,
Did you know him before?
a little, but not much, really.
So there wasn't.
I mean,
it wasn't an interview.
Oh, no. No, when we had to take this term out, I just probably rang up and said, "Can I do a term out with you?" So I'd done this one term with him. And I didn't, in fact, go straight from the AA to work for him. I worked for 6 months with Nottinghamshire County Council because I was inspired by prefabricated buildings. When I got there, I was uninspired quite quickly. So I left. And then I asked him if I could come and work with him.
So was Susan working in the office then? Because she did during the war, didn't she?
Yes, she was, during the war, she was working as secretary.
Yes.
But when I was there, she was working sort of not in the office, but she did a tremendous lot. She did a lot of content, and she also was working a lot for the Institute. She was, I think, editor for the journal.
And was the institute being run from Gower Street?
No,
No.
that was over.
And so it had gone to Carlton House
They
Terrace.
hadn't. They had gone somewhere else. They went to Carlton House Terrace in, actually, I thought it was late 60s. Or no, even the 70s. No, I think it went in the 70s to Carlton House Terrace. So it was somewhere else. I can't quite remember where.
So, can you recall what the office was like? Was it more like a private house, or had it been converted into an office?
It was exactly like a private house. So on the ground floor level, on the ground level two, was Geoffrey's office and secretary. And it was one of these tall, narrow houses. So on each floor there were 2 or 3 people working. The basement, I don't think any. I think someone was working in the basement.
So how many people do you think were working in the office?
There was Geoffrey Jellicoe, and then there was Coleridge.
But not Valentine.
No, he was in Plymouth because he was supervising the work in Plymouth. So I don't know how many staff he had there, but I think in London there were probably 7 or 8.
And were they all qualified architects, or were they technicians?
So there was at least 2 technicians.
And did that include Fred Jewson?
It did. Yes, he was a very important technician.
Was he a draftsman? I know he made the models. Was he also?
Yes, he was a draftsman. Yes, and well, yes, he did all that sort of thing, and he was very good at it.
So, obviously, before the days of computers, what drawing equipment was used in the office? Was it graphos or repeatograph or pencil or what?
I think it was ink. Yes.
How did you apply the ink to the paper?
Well, you had a sort of pen, which I think you fixed a separate.
Is that graphos?
It probably
GI.
was. Yes, I think that rings a bell. And I think you fixed a separate head on for each
Yes, that's right.
design. And then it was very liquid, so you could spill it quite easily.
And I met Fred because he was married to a librarian at Gower.
Yes.
And he asked permission through her to come to one of our prints, which he did. And he was very respectful. He called him Mr. Jellicoe, and he wore a sort of a tweed suit.
Yes.
Does that convey something of the atmosphere in the office? I mean, presumably the staff they wore suits when they came in, and then they put on fine jackets.
So I don't think a suit, but a jacket and trousers and a tie.
Yes.
Sure, tie. Yes, and we put on a sort of overthing to draw, so we didn't get too dirty.
A nice big double elephant ball.
Oh, yes,
with a little
absolutely.
pouch to get rid of
Yes. Yes, and the T-square, of course, was separate, not fixed to the wall. So it was a separate instrument. Later they got sort of fixed onto the wall.
So 2 or 3 people in each room.
I think usually two. Yes, because I worked with Frank Marshall.
Was Frank working?
Oh, yes.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Yes, he was in the same office as me. We were a sort of pair.
Oh, he was delightful.
Yes, he was. Yes.
But he worked with, when I knew him, he worked with Edward Milner.
Well, he became Edward Milner's.
He became Edward Milner.
Yes, he did. So, but after he left Geoffrey, he went and worked. I think he took on the sort of junior partner to Milner, and then took the office over.
So the office at that time, was it predominantly architecture with a little bit of landscape? Or was it 50-50?
Well, it's quite interesting. I mean, Coleridge was an architect,
Yeah.
and the architecture is what made the money. Although I'm afraid it's that Plymouth was losing. So when I was there, finances were very difficult because Plymouth had run out of its fees, but hadn't finished the job. So they were still finishing. But Geoffrey did quite a lot of landscape, but he didn't really make any money on it. That's what interested me. But the office was doing mainly architecture to make money.
And so did you go there expecting to do landscape, or did you go there as an architect?
No, as an architect, yes.
And so your interest in landscape grew in the time you were there?
Absolutely right, yes. I mean, it started when I went for this term out, when I actually worked on a landscape job.
Do you remember what it was?
Yes, it was the playing fields for Pilkingtons in St Helens. And
Is that the project that had a canal going round it to separate the building from instead of a fence, it had a canal?
I think that's right, yes, because I designed a bridge, which actually is
I think it must have been a canal.
which became the bridge which was used at Hemel Hempstead. It's the same bridge.
You mean the same design? Or the actual same
No,
bridge?
same design.
Oh,
So that sort of slight arch made in concrete. And I also designed a cricket field. So I was designing little buildings for that landscape scheme. And Geoffrey was doing all the landscape.
and which year was this?
This was 1958.
And for how many years did you stay there?
Well, this was my...
This was in your year out.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And I joined the office in the middle of 1960.
Mm.
And I stayed for 3 years.
So were you there when the Kennedy Memorial was? No, but that must have been just after you
I
left.
think that was later. The main scheme, landscape scheme, was Hemel Hempstead. That was absolutely going on.
You know, I remember sitting with Geoffrey and Susan in their sitting room on Grove Terrace.
Yes.
And I can't remember which one of them said it, but they both agreed that that was the project they'd done that gave them the most satisfaction.
That's interesting. Of course, Susan was very much involved with that as well, because she did all the filming. Yes, I mean, they both were highly involved in that.
I'm remembering what they said. I ran a little campaign on the Garden Visit website to detect the terrible condition a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so did other people too. But we're now forgetting this thing.
Yes, it's been excellent, hasn't it? No, I haven't been there either, but I would like to.
I'm looking forward to that. Any other projects you remember?
Well, I mean, the ones I worked on.
Yes, all projects that were going through the office
Yes.
at that time.
Well, the ones I worked on was a really interesting scheme for the Welland Hatfield Hospital landscape, which I'm afraid has been destroyed. But it was a wonderful scheme. And it had a Mondrian-esque front courtyard, which Geoffrey's method is quite interesting because he worked
To get on to that.
yes.
Please, as fully as possible. As fully as possible. What was his
Well,
method?
it was the first thing I did when I got to the office. On Saturday morning, he worked at home on tracing paper with a blue fountain pen and produced the most poorly drawn but very clear and fully detailed drawing of what he wanted. And he brought it in on the Monday and he would explain what he was after and leave this drawing. And then we had to start interpreting it. And he would come and reinterpret it as it went on.
And were they scale plans or perspectives as well?
No scale plans. So he
Always planned. He didn't work in elevation. 3D.
not at all, I don't think. No, I don't remember that. I think it was
So the models that Fred worked on, they were generated from the drawings and presumably with guidance from Geoffrey.
yes, absolutely. And usually from drawings that were already redrawings of what Geoffrey had drawn. And the beautiful drawings he did later were not evident at all. You didn't know that you were going to suddenly become
Well,
one from grass.
What he said later, that he was so intimidated by Jock Shepherd's extraordinary talent as a draftsman that he just felt that he couldn't do it and that he was nothing in comparison with Jock.
That is interesting.
Yes.
But it was a beautiful scheme, and it was extremely clever because the engineers produced a layout for the front courtyard, which
This is
the hospital, which didn't work at all. So the ambulances blocked the surgeons who were coming to work with the people who were in the ambulances. So he reorganized the whole thing, and though it looked like a Mondrian drawing, but it was all black and white. It worked extremely well. So the movement and when he wanted a vehicle to be able to turn a corner, he would make a bigger square so that the curve was within the square. So it was a lovely design.
I've never seen a drawing of it. I wonder if
I have a drawing of it.
You've got it.
Yes, I kept it.
Well, it would be very nice if you could send it
Yes.
to me. I'll put it in the video.
I'll do that.
Do you know if the Landscape Archive in Reading has got a copy?
I think it probably hasn't. I don't know that it has. No, I don't think they have.
Well, I hope
Well,
you made a good plan for where your drawings are going.
Well, I was going to give them that drawing because I drew the drawing actually.
Nice.
So it's not one of his drawings. His drawing, I'm afraid, is lost because we didn't keep his drawings. As soon as he was satisfied with what we were working on, he would get rid of his own drawing, and then we'd work on the guidance.
Can you remember any other staff for your office apart from because Frank was landscape architect?
Yes, it was.
So was he the only landscape architect employed in the office?
I think he was. I'm alternate names. There was a really nice woman who was an architect. I'm afraid I can't remember her name. And there was the secretary. That's the ones I can remember.
Any other project?
Well, yes. I mean, the things I went up, I got onto the scheme, to the Pilkington last year later, but the other main landscape scheme I did was Gloucester City. He was asked to do a layout for Gloucester City. So he did a layout of how the pedestrians should move through the city. Actually, I think there still exists something called Versailles, which is a route from the cathedral joining various monuments in the city, which is a pedestrian route. But he
I've seen a
invented,
drawing.
yeah. So we drew it out. He put buildings about the place, suitable buildings, and we made a big model of them. Again, I got a report
With the drawings in it.
with some drawings in it.
Well, it was very nice of them to add them to this.
But because
Then they'll be stored on Google servers in California. And so,
yes, that was it.
yeah, for a while, until the electricity runs out.
Yes. And because all he was doing was determining the size of the buildings, I had a lot of fun sort of designing imaginary buildings for the model.
And how much of it was implemented?
Well, this pedestrian route, the other thing that was implemented was a negative thing. That he's determined that no building should be higher than certain heights, so you get the views of the cathedral. And
Is this the origin of your own interest in skylines?
It is, yes. And it still is, I think, enforced in Gloucester. And he did a scheme, in fact, I think it may be in this scheme as well, different heights of building in different parts of the city. So you had around the cathedral, no higher than the present. Then a little bit higher as you got further away, and then a zone where you could have high buildings.
The name Via Sacra is obviously from Rome.
Yes.
So I wonder if he was thinking more of the Panathenea way in Greece.
I don't know.
I think his interest was greater in Italy than in Greece, actually.
Oh, I think
at that stage, I think when he wrote The Landscape of Man, he became familiar with more projects.
I think he was definitely interested in Italy. And also, I mean, he was really trying to join the monuments together, so they made a whole. Well, lost of rather.
I mean, that sounds as though it's modelled on the Forum in Rome.
Yes.
But that is called the Via Sacra, isn't it?
Oh, is it in Rome as well?
I think
I
it
didn't
is,
know that.
yeah.
Oh, yes. But then the other job I had, which was these Glass Age Committee schemes
For Pilkington.
Pilkingtons. And the first one, that's when he was in desperate financial problems. And he simply, it was after I'd done the hospital scheme, he simply came in one day and said, I've got an opportunity to do this project for Pilkingtons. I've got no time to do it. Have a go. So, and it was to be a tower by St Pancras Station, which would be an exhibition. It's called Crystal 61. And it was used in their reversibles. So we did that. I just did that project before him.
Well, wonderful project.
Yes, it was. And then later, just before I left, there was this bridge called Crystal Span. He designed the reef, but he left me to design the building in both cases.
That's a good boss, isn't
Which
it?
is absolutely wonderful. Yes. Yes, he was a wonderful person to work for because he was so enthusiastic. I mean, when you began showing the drawings, he would be sort of bubbling with enthusiasm for the bits he liked. And for the bits he didn't like, he just sort of quickly say, I think it had changed. But there was no sort of, oh, you're not doing it properly. It's the other way around. That's wonderful. This is wonderful. This bit needs changing.
In my years teaching at Greenwich, we often had visiting critics, and Geoffrey was the best. I saw that as soon as he came, and I think that what he must have done is to bring the manner that he developed through his way in the office and his time. I think he must have brought that to the students. He was good at the three things which I think a critic ought to do, which is to put into words the design standards which is the student has adopted, and then to be encouraging.
Yes.
And to make a positive suggestion, and also to pick up on anything that's difficult. But he did it all in such an interesting and kindly way. And no tears after he had to.
Absolutely. No, that was like that in the office. So it was the only time I saw him being ferocious was not with us, but he was fed up with some road engine about a project. The road engineer was insistent that everything being done in a way he didn't approve. And he asked the road engineer and his staff to come and discuss it in the office. And he set it up as a theatre. He put the engineers in front of him, the desk here. He put us all behind them and said, will you please take written notes to us members of staff? So the members of staff are behind these people. Loud
Office is simple.
yes, them not being able to see us, but they could hear us writing the notes of everything they said. And they got completely demoralized. And by the end, they were agreeing with his approach to the project. I can't remember what.
Oh, you don't remember what the
No, I can't. But I can remember this.
It wasn't the road through Christchurch Meadow in Oxford, was it?
I don't remember. I'm afraid I just remember the event because I was nothing to do with that project. I was that intimidated for it.
The got tires and the tears in the city. What any other projects that you remember going through the office?
There was a project which for some housing, I think, probably at Hemel Hempstead, which actually
I've seen it. I've seen a housing project of his.
it might be.
Something of a curved crescent with, I think, the central building slightly high. I'm remembering from 40 years ago, so I may have got it wrong.
I mean, this, I didn't cope properly. The bit I was asked to work on was a kind of pedestrian way with shops on both sides and flats above the shops. And Francis Coleridge was in charge of it. And I just couldn't cope. So I was removed from that job.
I think that Hemel Hempstead, Geoffrey said that his plan was rejected. They said, thank you very much, and they didn't want it. But I don't think he was fair to himself over that. I think that many of the principles, which are somewhat like those that MacHarg later used in his Green Springs, Wellington, and for the valleys, were the idea of keeping the houses not dominating the sky. You know, he retained the woodlands on the ridge tops. So he always seen that native contained, bringing it. And of course, putting a sense of park and later design. Yes. But in photography, but I do think with, I think it's the last of the new landscape brands.
Oh, that's good. Because he was disappointed.
I know.
When we were there, he was disappointed. When he was working on the she made a lovely pond of the Central Park. I mean, he was all expressing disappointment that he hadn't been asked to reward, keep more control of the way of stuff.
I think what he was particularly disappointed with was a somewhat geometrical and somewhat modernist design for the what's now the water governance. Right. He thought later, he associated it with a visit to Freddie Gibbard, actually. And he saw an energy in Gibbard's work, which I haven't seen myself. But he said, where did you get this from? And Freddie said, modern art. And Geoffrey went to look at modern art, and he then looked at the rather static quality of his original design and thought that he could do better. And luckily, he had the opportunity to do that. I think he was disappointed with the original, but very happy with the later ones.
That's interesting. But I mean, he was very influenced by modern art. I mean, at the time, he would visibly he would show pictures, try and get inspiration from pictures, yes. And he had
pictures in books or postcards.
Well, he had some pictures. He had a wonderful necklace which he had preserved. And he had at home, and he had a lovely foreign match. He had trees. And he had a nice collection of little pictures.
Do you know anything about his interest in the subconscious as an influence on design? From that period,
I don't think it had started.
I think it began with the Kennedy Memorial.
Perhaps it did. No, what he talked about was a relationship between art, pictures by artists, and landscapes. And so was the tradition of the 18th century being influenced by pictures. he was trying to make modern pictures that influence his landscapes. That was his sort of working theme.
I remember we took a group of students to his flat in Highgate.
Yes.
And he talked about painting, and he was working on the Moody Gardens at the time.
Yes.
He had a big roll of bricks, unrolled them on the carpet, and then he paused at one, and he said, this was influenced by one of the paintings on the wall. Can anyone guess?
Could you guess?
I pointed to the students, obviously an invitation to them. But I can't remember her name, but one of them, she got it.
Oh, right.
She said that one. He said, it was through. He said, yes.
Oh, that is nice. Yes.
And he wrote the supplement. When the Garden Art Press republished his study of landscape design,
Yes.
he wrote an essay, which I don't think I've seen, in which he said to being written for the students, not all students, to give guidance on how to use art, because he didn't want it ever to be copied. It was inspiration.
That's right.
Rather than
Yes.
mimesis.
No, because anyhow, with a working landscape, it's so influenced by the need of sight and the problem that you can't really make a problem. It is only inevitable.
Yeah. Any other project you remember?
That's all the projects I work on. I'm rather awful. I can't really remember now the projects going on.
You can't remember anything that Frank did. Well, thank you. Can we move on to talk about the INA? When did you first come into contact with the Institute? Now the Landscape Institute, of course. But,
When I joined Geoffrey permanently, I was still an architect.
yeah.
I
And did you do a course in landscape architecture?
No.
There weren't any.
There weren't any. No. But I soon realised from the work going on in the office that I wanted to be a landscape architect. So I took Youngman's course. I couldn't do it all together because it was full. So I was allowed to go to the lectures and have crits, but I wasn't allowed to do the full studio. So I had to do that on my own.
And was that based in Saxon London?
Yes, it was in the university.
In Regent Street?
No, it was a bit of the university that is in Gower Street.
In Gower Street?
Yes.
Very convenient.
Yes, the bit that's at the top of Gower Street.
And did you make friends with the other students?
Yes, I did. Yes. And again, I can't remember their names, but we set up a group to help each other and sort of helped each other with our projects, sort of did internal crafts. So we had a sort of self-educating group as well as the course Edie Young was doing, which was brilliant. And he was a wonderful lecturer.
Also a very good critic. We had him a long time, more than Geoffrey actually as a critic.
Oh, right.
And he had a wonderful way of following through time. He said, well, where do I arrive? And where do I park my car? And then what do I see when I get to the entrance? And all right, so I go around the path there, and then what?
That's excellent. But he was terribly different from Geoffrey because he liked to be very rational, Edie Young. And Geoffrey was quite emotional in his approach. You felt it.
What do you mean by emotional?
Well, it was a sort of aesthetic exercise. You were involved in making art. Edie Young wasn't like that at all.
No. He was a skeptic of that.
Yes.
I think even in Geoffrey, much though he imagined, I think he thought Geoffrey was a little bit flowery.
Yes. But you mentioned Frederick Gibbon, and he and Geoffrey were great friends.
Yes.
And they went on holiday.
But they used to visit a city, didn't they?
Yes.
And I think, I forget, I think it must have been Geoffrey that told me that when they got to the city, Frederick would go around photographing everything, click, click, click.
Yes.
Whereas Geoffrey just looked absorbed.
Yes, I'm sure that's right.
And Susan took the photograph.
Yes, so she did. Yes. Although I think they went without Susan, didn't their visits to these times. So, and Susan was very active in the office when I was there. She would come in a lot of the days, and she did a lot of the bonding itself. And she also sort of helped to make it run smooth. I'm not quite sure how, but she was sort of there making things smooth.
And did you draw plans? So she just wrote this, and then Frank would.
I think so. I think it was just for bondings. Yeah. Then, talking about the ILA, then she asked me to become the sort of person who lays out the journal. Well, I can't quite remember when that started, but I did a few years laying out the journal. So she was the editor, but I laid out the pictures on the pages.
Was that done with cut and paste?
Yes, it was. Yes.
It was
Literally cut and
Yes. That's
No, actually, I think it wasn't. I think it was done with just lines on the page, writing on which the picture was going to be. So we didn't actually cut line. It's not.
They were great years for the child. I think she was very good at that.
Yes. I think the written text was superb, but looking back at the journals, the quality of the photographs was very poor.
Yes.
No, yeah, but they were very relevant to the text, so they were very. Yes, I think it was a really good journal.
So when you wanted to join the Institute, you just wrote a letter and wrote a check, did you?
Oh, no.
You had an exam.
Lots of exams.
Oh, what a woman.
Oh, yes.
Who examined you and how, what in?
People who were.
In design.
Yes, we had I think probably 3 different design projects, which they they defined the brief for the project, but you decided what you would do.
Was this the design set piece?
That was the final piece. But before that, I did a garden for blind people, a small garden. I think the subject was a small garden for a specific purpose. And you had to invent for a purpose and then design it. And so I think there was probably 3 or 4 projects you had to present. That was the first exam. There were written exams as well. So you had to do practical knowledge.
And who wrote the syllabus? I mean,
I think probably Arnold Webb, I guess. He was very active thinking about education. So I guess it was him. I mean, there was quite clear syllabus.
But I remember Peter Youngman saying that when he joined the Institute, he had to submit something as well. So I don't know when he joined. Probably after the war, I should think.
I think so. Yes. So, and the set piece was quite demanding. I failed it first.
I mean, most people did.
Did they?
Well, at the time I had to do it in the late 60s. There was a very high failure rate.
Yes. You have to keep us on our toes.
So did you have to do a new project, or did they let you improve it?
I don't remember whether I improved that one or did a new one.
But you don't remember visiting the Landscape Institute offices at that time?
I think I did, but not much. But there were lectures. Quite regularly. Lectures to go to.
It went over till Timothy Colvin set up the branches. I think that's when we stopped with the branches, which became a chapter.
Yes.
No, the other way around. It was started with chapters.
Yes.
On a nice ecclesiastical model. So, any other thoughts about the early days, about the time of Geoffrey, or the early days of the Institute? It would be nice to put on record.
Well, I think the early days, the people I sort of knew, Peter Shepherd was quite dominant at that time, but Watson Griffith, he was, and Susan was very fond of Montreal.
Yes.
So he was about this. Ivor Cunningham
He worked on the Spam.
Yes, he did. Yes, yes. And Cliff Tan was immensely.
Well, I was wondering if Cliff hadn't written the exam syllabus.
Oh, he might well have done.
Because he definitely wrote he wrote the curriculum when the schools were set up.
Oh,
10 years after.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
He wrote a curriculum. It could have been for the design set piece, or it could have been for the schools. I'm not quite sure. But it was a very good document.
Yes. And then Lord Esher, quite a big figure, he did he did think about it. He was a subtopia. Did he write something called subtopia?
I think so.
The very old John's actually quite prominent as well. He was already set up by the prominent figure.
So this is the period from 60 to 60.
Yes, yes. And Tough Williams Ellis. I mean, he was so eccentric, but he was still a figure that was sort of there in the background.
I once met with the convict said that because I have cousins called Ellis. He said you must be related to him.
Oh.
But I looked into it and
You're not. Those were the people that sort of came to mind.
But what about Brenda Colvin? When did you first meet?
See, this is so interesting. I don't think I met her at all when I was working for Geoffrey, although they were.
Did you meet in Sylvia?
Well, I don't think I did. I mean, it's very strange.
So when did you meet Brenda?
Well, it was set up by Geoffrey.
Was he winding down his office?
No, I mean, what happened was that Brenda gave up her role in the London office. She gave it up altogether. She handed it over to Sylvan, it was her office, and she went to Philpotts. And I think she was thinking of retiring, but it wasn't in her nature to retire. So she had this little.
Not in yours.
So she had this little wooden office in the garden, her garden, which I think had a staff of 2 or 3 Philpotts. But then she began to realize she had a whole lot of long-term jobs that were very interesting, but she didn't want to give up, but it was getting on for a minute. And the staff were there. I think she had someone she'd hoped would take over, but it wasn't working out. So she asked Geoffrey, would he suggest someone who might become her partner? And I was invited by Geoffrey and Susan to go to dinner one night. So an evening when they were talking about the foundation of the Landscape Institute. So I was surprised to be there. But I was sat next to Brenda all the evening and the meal and afterwards. And so she rang up the next day and said, I'm thinking of taking on a partner. So I went and saw her. So I did a 3-month trial. Her only condition really was that I must move down to film. So, and I didn't know her before that at all.
Yeah, Geoffrey's role as bringer on of people is enormous.
Oh, it is.
It's really worth standing. I think Peter Young got his first job through.
Oh, did he?
And I think Derek Lovejoy as well.
I wouldn't be surprised because he didn't like doing the same sort of job twice. He got bored once he'd done one. And so when for instance, when he'd done the quarry, he handed over the next quarries to other people. So he was always handing jobs on to other people. And in fact, he handed on to me the third of the Glass Age radio speakers in the Sea City when I was already set up on my own.
So, scheme?
Sea City, you know, this was a scheme which Glass Age committee was mainly here. For a city. No, Motoko was earlier. No, this was a city in the North Sea. Related to
I was thinking of the letters. Yeah, it comes on.
Yes. So he just handed that over to me as a job when I was just starting on my own. And he would have had someone in his office do it, but he was so generous. Anyway, if he wasn't interested in doing it himself, he just handed it on to other people. I think he did it at the men as well.
Yes, I do too. Well, anything else that we think of in that during Bob?
Well, he very much liked theatre and opera and music. He used to take the office. I remember he took us to see Margaret Fontaine dance in the whole office. It wasn't very popular at most of the office. I thought it was wonderful.
Do you think that was a childhood interest, or do you think perhaps it came through Susan?
I think it came from Susan. I think a lot of things came through her, actually, because she was a highly intellectual. It would come through her.
Strange that they never had children.
I think she couldn't have.
Oh, I wouldn't. Sure.
So do you? I think it was.
So I've heard that from somebody. I don't know.
I've always thought of him as switching Belgian.
Well, except that asking professional.
Yes, exactly. And it wasn't very long after. He didn't really like running the office. I think he was happier when he closed the office down and was working on his own. Yes, that's it. So I think he, to do the jobs, he had to have an office, but it wasn't really what he quite wanted to do.
And did he have office parties?
I don't remember.
No Christmas party?
Oh, we had it. Oh, yes, in a very posh restaurant.
Oh,
yes, the Ivy. We went.
oh.
Yes.
Lunchtime. Or
I think
before Christmas, not Christmas.
it's like it must have been lunchtime.
Yeah.
I just remember they went.
Let's go for that. Thank you very much. Well, thank you.